The topic that I will be talking about today, to my best ability, is Tawheed, or oneness of God, and how that's viewed in Islam. And after I present the topic to you, I will leave the forum for questions. I think that's when maybe we can interact, deal with issues of importance to you. As you might know from Muslims and others, Tawheed, or oneness of God, is the linchpin of all of Islam. Islam emphasizes this aspect more than any other aspect. Before Islam came, actually the world was rife with people who worship different deities, different gods, and different things and objects. They made them divine. And Islam came basically repudiating and refuting and reestablishing the oneness of God. If you look, there's actually a tradition mentioned in Bukhari. Bukhari is a book of hadith where Prophet Muhammad, he said that the Arabs used to say before Islam came that we used to worship all the stones, so much so that they had erected or put all these stones in Mecca, or where currently Mecca is located, and they used to worship these stones, and they used to circumambulate these stones. And they used to say that if we were traveling or if we were walking somewhere and we found a stone that looked a little good, that looked really nice, we would pick up that stone and go into Mecca and replace the stones that were sitting there with the ones we found that we thought was good looking or was attractive. And if we did not find any stones, sometimes what they would do if they were away from Mecca is that they would take some clay, put it together, and have their goat, milk their goat, and pour the milk on top of that, clay, and then they would circumambulate. So they had no real concept of who God was, and anything could have been a God for them. And also, there's another tradition where they used to, where they said that they used to also take their dates that we eat as form of deity, and when they traveled, they would have their dates with them, and if they get hungry, they would be like, they would just eat the dates. So this was their concept. So Quran comes and basically challenges all these concepts. Not only, the concepts that were not only prevalent in Arabia at the time, but also throughout the whole world. Quran talks about worshipping cows, for instance, or any other objects that Hindus worship, or even taking Jesus as deity aside from God. Quran deals with that as well. Or even according to the Quranic verses, some groups in Judaic tradition had associated Judah as the son of God. So Quran also addresses that. And also Zoroastrians and other groups of people who worship either the sun or the fire. All of these groups have been mentioned in the Quran, and all of these different objects of worship have also been mentioned in the Quran. And different arguments have been presented to deal with a variety of forms of worship, and also the deities. So that's just introduction. So now, Quran, when Quran talks about oneness of God, or worshiping only one divine being, it presents three different angles of argument. One angle it presents is that it's natural and instinctive. It's an inborn and innate, disposition of a human being to worship only one God. And one example that I was able to extract from it, and there are numerous examples. This is one example that I will present to you, is the example that Quran gives, which is, Quran says that, when you travel in the open sea or in the ocean, and the winds are conducive to your travel, it's, your vessel or your ship is sailing, you are very happy. And then all of a sudden, when the winds change, and they become severe and stormy, and it causes the waves of the ocean to rise, and it encircles your ship. And the people who are riding the ship are now convinced that they will be drowned. that they will be destroyed. Quran says that the group of people that it's addressing, are polytheists, are people who don't believe in one God. So Quran says, when the atmosphere is clement and is conducive for their travel, they're very happy and merry. But all of a sudden, when things get very turbulent, sincerely from the very depth of their heart, they turn to only the one God. They invoke or convoke Allah sincerely from their heart. And then they say that if you save us, if you rescue us, we will be amongst the grateful. That's what the Quran says. So in other words, when push comes to shove, when things get difficult, people tend to call unto their true God, the God that they believe, who created them and who sustains them and who nurtures them. But when things are not as difficult, when things are easy and pretty decent, then people tend to get themselves involved with things that are unnatural. So that's one argument the Quran brings about. The argument of innate desire and innate inclination of human beings to worship one God. And there are many, many examples of that. The second argument the Quran comes up with is the rational and the intellectual argument. That how can you believe in other deities and not believe in one deity? And this argument, and there are many examples of this as well, but the three examples that I thought of is the example of duality. God says that everything has been created in pairs, male and female. There's a verse in Surah Yasin, it's where Allah says, God, or I will just refer to God as Allah, and we can talk about that in the question and answer session. What is the difference between God and Allah? There isn't that big of a difference, in terms of the concept. But in terms of the linguistic application to that concept, there is a big difference. So in this surah, Allah says that exalted is He who has created everything in pairs, or exalted is He who has created everything that's come forth from the earth in pairs. And also, He has created everything in pairs, in pair from yourselves. In other words, human beings. And also, He's created things in pair which are unknown to you. So if you look at electricity or neutrons and protons, there's a negative and positive charge. It's male and female. Even in produce and fruits and vegetables, there's male and female. All of this thing. So he brings forth this argument that everything is created in pair, so that they can continue in their subsistence and in their survival. So this is supposed to make us reflect. What if He created things in their state of being single? What would happen? I mean, people or things would not continue to survive. So this is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tries to attract people to think about. The second thing He talks about is the stars, and the galaxies and their interrelationship. For example, He talks about the sun and the moon and the earth. And He says that He's created them in such a way that the sun will never, the word in Arabic is, it will never catch it, or the moon will never catch the sun, or the sun will not ever come into the zone of the moon or the orbit of the moon, and vice versa.